Everyone should be able to get the health care they need, including abortion care and access, if they decide that that is what's best for their particular circumstance. While there's no right or wrong answers, without a doubt, the wrong answer is when legislators try to dictate these decisions and tell doctors how to care for their patients. My commitment to the people of this state is to continue to listen to women and to healthcare and medical professionals to implement public policy which supports healthy and happy families. I encourage this body to vote the bill down. A yes vote is a vote against women.
Thank you, Representative Bernstein. Representative Hager, speak in favor of the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'll keep my comments brief and for time. I've heard statistics the last 2 days. As a freshman, I like to listen. I don't normally talk. But from some of the things I've heard, I just couldn't be quiet. We've heard that 80% of South Carolina does not want this abortion bill. Well, if that was the case, I would not be here today. In my district, when I campaigned, I made it very clear to my district during my campaign events, during any events I attended, I made it very clear that I came up here for two things. I came up here to protect the lives of unborn babies and to protect our Second Amendment rights. If my district did not like that, then I would not be here. We also heard that doctors know it all, that we should trust them with decisions about our bodies and about women's bodies. I have a good friend. His wife had difficulty with her first pregnancy, physical difficulty. Her second pregnancy, she had emotional difficulty. So when she got pregnant the third time, her doctor told her she should not carry to term, that it would be too stressful for her, that she did not, and they convinced her to have an abortion. It absolutely destroyed her family. To this day, her health is bad. She regrets that decision. It has destroyed that family. I also heard that children that are conceived in rape don't have the right to live. I have a very good friend who was in that situation. She was conceived in rape. Her mother did the right thing, did not have an abortion. She now has a beautiful family. She is reconciled with her biological father, and her children are like grandchildren to me. Those two young children that I consider my adopted grandchildren would not be here today if her mother had done what is anticipated and expected. I want you to, if you put up the first slide for me. I want you to meet this young girl. This is my granddaughter. This is Emily Rivers Hager, and I hope to see her sometime in the next 10 weeks if we finish in here. She is on the way to us. This ultrasound was taken when she was 20 weeks, around approximately 20 weeks. If my daughter-in-law had decided that all of a sudden she didn't want her, here in South Carolina, she could have aborted her. As you can see, this is a perfectly formed baby. Put up the next slide, please. And unfortunately for this child, she has my feet. We're joking about the fact that she has big feet, so thank you. The next thing, if you'll put up the next slide, please. These two young men are my twin sons. One is a major in the Air Force, the other is an Army veteran. In November 7th, 1989, they got in a fight in my wife's womb and decided they wanted to come early. That night, my wife's water broke at 28 weeks. We made a rush to MUSC, and I cannot say enough about that hospital. It was a great experience. It was a terrible experience, but it was a wonderful hospital. I watched these two young men being removed from my wife's womb in an emergency C-section. When the babies came out, I could put their head on my hand, on my tips of my fingers, and their feet are at my wrist. That's how big they were. I watched them fight for 52 days to become the men that they are today. We had ups and downs, but they were fighting for life. At that time, in most states, they could have been aborted, but they were fully functional, fully formed young men, and I am glad they made it. Miss Erickson helped me raise them. They were in her daycare when they were little. She remembers them fondly. So, ladies, we're not trying to tell you what you can do with your bodies. We're trying to tell you what you can't do to our unborn baby's body. The way I see it, we have, by the time we get to the point where we need an abortion, we've already made 2 other decisions with our bodies. We've known a man biblically. We've done it without contraception. And yes, contraception fails, so when it does, anytime you know a man, you're taking a chance that you're going to get pregnant. So we've already made 2 poor decisions, and the 3rd decision we're about to make is to kill a child. So think about that when we're talking about the rights of women and their bodies, that you've already made a couple of decisions, and now you're going to make a really bad one on top of that. Thank you for your time.
Representative Annie McDaniel is recognized to speak against the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you to all of the members of this chamber. Thank you for the very passionate and compassionate conversation that we've had. You know, I sit and I've listened, and it appears that the reason we are against this bill has everything to do with what I've just heard earlier about us about us wanting to get rid of babies for all of these different reasons. But what you all fail to understand is that we don't all live in the same kind of environment. And if we really care the way we say we do, then why do we have people living in projects? Why do we have people getting minimally adequate education? Why do we have people applying for jobs and being treated a certain kind of way based on not their education, but oftentimes skin color? And I can say that because I've been in those shoes where I sat beside someone who was of a different race with way less education than I have, and they were afforded an opportunity and not me. And someone may say, well, why do you attribute that to race? And I'll say to you, why not? You know, having a seat at the table is important. It is very important. So you talk about the child once the child gets here, but I have yet to hear you talk about how you take care of that mother that has been victimized. And if she is making a mistake, if she chooses to abort, which I don't agree with abortions, I've never been pregnant. But what I do agree with is the fact that God gives every living person an opportunity to accept or reject. He gives it to us. Otherwise, a lot of y'all wouldn't be sitting here for the things that you know that's in your heart that have hurt people in this great state of South Carolina. And I've probably done some too. And that's why I appreciate and love him as the living God that he is, because he do forgive. He has not given any of us a heaven nor a hell. And if you reflect back on the Bible, since we want to use this debate in that vein, do you remember when he wrote on the ground and he said, "He without sin cast the first stone"? I wonder how many of our names was on the ground and still on the ground. But we want to sit here and act like, because we are passionate about young ladies who feel that they have to have an abortion, that we are evil. Well, evil is you not taking care of them once they get here. Evil is you not considering postpartum depression. Evil is you not putting yourself in their shoes. Evil is you not having that conversation with them and understanding their plight. Because if you have not walked in somebody else's shoes, then you don't know. Look back and search your history. Because almost every one of us in here is privileged in our own right. But there are a lot who's not. If we really care the way we say we do, why do we have homelessness in this state? This should be a great state that says nobody lives on the street homeless. It's not a choice, it's not an option. Because we would make sure you have a warm place. And I know some of you may say, well, you know, some people want to be homeless. And I say the devil is a liar. Nobody wants to be homeless. But because of certain things that we've done with some of these laws that we have put in place, it leaves a person no option. Everybody doesn't have the same mental state. That's why you have some people do some things and others do other things. We closed our mental hospital in the state. And now we have gun violence all out of control. And we act like we don't know why. Oh, guns don't kill people. But where if they weren't there, the people wouldn't have them to kill. But we don't want to talk about saving lives in that respect. It's okay to have all the violence going on. It's okay to have people shooting people. It's okay to execute in this state. You do know that we have a 14-year-old that we executed, that it was later determined that child did not do what he was executed for. But we say we love life. And then we want to mock those of us who stand here, and we're trying to be a voice for the voiceless. That was a promise I made to God when he allowed me to be here, and that is what I will continue to be. And you know why? Because I've been there. I'm not a privileged child. I'm not living off of inherited money. I'm living off money that I earned from hard work. And I just sit there and I listen to you all think that we are proponents for people killing babies. It's passion for people who do not have what you all have. And then you're going to sit here and tell me that a person who's been raped should not have an option? But God gives you an option. He allows you to breathe. And just because you were saying that a woman is just taking a child's life, that's your perspective. When are you going to allow people to make their own decisions? Since I've been here, we're making bills to deal with people's lives as it relates to moral things. But when we got these raggedy behind roads that people having accidents on, when we have some communities in this state are able to have the best of the best and others do not, I don't hear us talking about that. Where's the equity? Where's the equity in the funding? Now, I try to get along with everybody in here, and I'm going to continue to. I'm going to continue to. But when we are sitting in our own little boxes, and we're supposed to be here making laws that make the entire state great, we should all be ashamed. We should all be ashamed, because it's the crazy laws that we put in place that are not considerate. As we want to talk about the Bible, it does tell us that we're supposed to take care of the least of these. Suffer not the children. But what do? We just make bills, and when those of us try to tell you the impact, because you hadn't lived in our communities, you don't want to hear that. You don't want to hear it. You know, Republican, Democrat, but one thing I would promise you, as I stand here at this well, God has a plan for every last one. And if we're here using his name in vain, just because we want a bill passed that have a Republican behind it, or even a Democrat behind it, those consequences will be coming. Remember what I said, the name on the ground, written by God, not by me. And then there's separation of church and state. But we don't want to separate it with this. We don't want to separate it when we're talking about a poor little woman who's going through all kinds of mental changes. Have any of you all gone through mental changes trying to have a baby? I haven't, but I'm still passionate because I'm here to make decisions and cast my vote to help everybody, regardless of race, regardless of political preference, regardless of anything. And I spend all of my time fighting because I want everybody to be able to live a good, fruitful life. Stone face I see. But it's okay, because I ain't the one that you got to answer to at the end of the day. But I'm here to tell you what God put in my heart to tell you. Because, see, I prayed before I came up here. And I asked him what he wanted me to say. But I have all these notes right here. But he wanted me to talk to you from my heart based on what he tells me to tell you. And that's what I did. So when you cast this vote, when y'all cast this vote, and y'all are telling women what they should do with your bodies, but God allow you to do what you want to do with yours, the blood is on your hands. And we can have all the moments of silence we want. You will pay the price for the vote you take. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Representative McDaniel. Representative White, you're recognized to speak in favor of the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. I want to first read two notes that I got from South Carolina citizens about this subject. My name is Alicia McKim from Kershaw County, South Carolina. It was a very long time ago, but they made it sound like an easy choice. I was young and afraid, and they knew that. It's not a baby, it's a glob of tissue. You can go right back to your life like it never happened. It was a horrific experience, and I had complications afterwards. When I called them, they told me to go to the hospital and hung up on me. I cried for weeks. I locked myself in my apartment and told no one. But why was I so emotionally destroyed? I was suffering from PTSD, but we didn't know about that yet. I made many self-destructive choices for many years. I didn't know if I could ever have a child afterward, and didn't think I deserved to have one. I was so angry at pro-lifers, and I justified my own bad decisions. 23 years ago, though, I had a baby girl and a supernatural experience with Christ. I was now saved, and I asked God for that forgiveness. But I didn't really feel forgiven. It haunted me still. I found a good church and began volunteering at a local crisis pregnancy care center. Eventually, I became the executive director of that center because I wanted to share what was not shared with me at Planned Parenthood. It was a baby, and there are other options. I counseled girls and families for almost 15 years and saw many miracles. I now see these accidents as teenagers and young adults in my community. I know these kids and their families, and I see the purpose God has for them. Where in our society does a woman grieve after her choice to terminate her child? Is there a memorial service or even a family there to give them post-abortive support? Not usually, because they are too ashamed to tell anyone. This is just a fact. It's a soul-crushing pain, and we must do more to help these women. Better yet, stop using abortion as birth control. It's a tragedy that can be avoided, and it must. Second one, 2 years ago, my daughter's friend in college, Sydney, was given the abortion pills to take over a weekend to terminate her 10-week pregnancy. By Saturday, after her second dose, she was violently ill with vomiting, cramping, and bleeding. She got up during the night and realized she had delivered a perfectly formed little baby. It was covered in blood, but she vividly remembers the 10 little fingers and toes. She was all alone and was utterly destroyed by this sight. She was a beautiful girl and a pre-med senior at USC with a bright future in medicine. But the consequences of this choice decimated her future and totally derailed her life. She had terrible nightmares and constant panic attacks. She couldn't eat or sleep at night because she saw her baby every time she closed her eyes. She stopped going to her classes, and just 2 months before graduation, she dropped out of school and moved back home to her family. She told them she had a miscarriage, and they grieved for this child. She had to seek professional help. She now has PTSD with insomnia and severe depression and is taking medication. She is hoping to return to school and one day have a family. Her nightmare is ongoing. How many more women and girls will have to go through this? Is this a culture of life or death? We must do what is right now. A year ago, when I ran for this office, I had no idea how difficult this particular question is. But at a meeting at the Newberry County Republican Party in May last year, at the week that I sent this card out to tell people what I believed about life, the front of this says it's life, not a choice. And one of the things it says on here is that Joe White will promise to support fetal heartbeat. At that meeting, a man came up to me and he was shaking. And he looked at me and he said, "Let me ask you a question. Are you running for God or are you running for the State House?" And I said, "I'm running for the State House." And when I said that, he took that card and he did that and he handed it to me and he said, "I would never vote for you." Well, I said, "Thank you," and went on about the meeting. A month later, we were having a debate. There were 3 of us in that campaign for the Republican nomination. And I told them in that debate how I feel about life. And a woman stood up and she shouted, "You hate women." I said, "No, ma'am, I don't. I won't tell you. I've got a wife I've been married to for 55 years who I love. Many mornings I weep about how grateful I am that God gave me that beautiful woman 55 years ago. I've got a daughter. I love her. I've got 3 granddaughters. I love them. I've got a granddaughter-in-law who I love. And I've got several nieces who I love. I do not hate women. But I want you to know why I believe what I believe about abortion. My wife and I had a baby. We'd been married less than a year. Baby was my namesake, Joseph Singleton White, Jr. And the baby lived 36 hours because he had a congenital heart failure. And when that happens to a 22-year-old guy, that makes you stop and think about the preciousness of life. And it made me think very seriously about the preciousness of life. We start every meeting in here by having a scripture reading and a prayer. And I think almost everybody in here believes in this micro God that created everything, that we believe created the universe. But I also am a person that believes in that micro God, that personal God. And I believe that personal God is the one that decides when an egg hits a sperm and causes that thing we call conception to happen. I believe it's God that does that. Since I believe it's God that does that, I don't believe I have the right to change that. I believe that's on God. So that's just part of why I believe what I believe about life. I want you to know one other thing. I know this is a volatile subject. I want you to know that even though I believe life begins at conception, and I think it should be protected from conception on till we're 105 or 120, that's what I'm shooting for. It doesn't bother me if you think that life is not valuable until it's 12 weeks old. Or if you don't think that life is valuable until it's 30 weeks old. Or if you don't believe that life is valuable until the umbilical cord is cut. I'm fine with that. I'm fine with you believing that. All I ask is that you understand that I believe what I believe and why I believe it, and I think I have the right to believe that. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative White. Representative Beach is recognized to speak for the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. When there's a group of society that is unwanted, Democrats throughout history strip their humanity from that particular group. It is far easier to eliminate the unwanted if they're stripped of their humanity. And we've seen this throughout history. Slavery. It was slaves that were their life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness was taken away from them. Just as today, life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness is being taken away from our babies. Trail of Tears, the Cherokee Indians were rounded up and their life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness was taken away. Just as the Democrats are trying to take away life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness from those babies. Their humanity is being stripped as well. The militant arm of the Democrat Party is the KKK. That also stripped life, liberty, pursuit of happiness. Just as the unborn babies, their humanity is being stripped away.
Mr. Speaker.
Japanese internment camps.
Representative Howard, for what purpose do you rise?
Mr. Speaker, point of order.
State your point of order.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, we have a member who is.
Representative Howard.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My point of order is we have a member who is assassinating the character of his colleagues and the Democratic Party, and I think that's something we should not be doing.
Mr. Beach, we do not discuss personalities, please, or accusations. Please contain your comments to the purposes of the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Representative Howard.
We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, endowed by the Creator with certain inalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. To secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, derived from the just powers from the consent of the governed, that whenever a form of government becomes destructive of these means, it is the right of people to alter and abolish it. The first part about life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness, I really want for people to remember that it is our job, our duty as politicians and lawmakers to protect those three rights. But for the other side of the chamber, that whenever a form of government becomes destructive of these ends, it is the right of the people to alter. On my first day as a legislator, I was removed from the Republican caucus for not signing the rules. I felt, and so did my conservative friends, that these rules were obstruction to our duty to God and to the citizens. When we're elected, it doesn't mean we're automatically saints or angels. And Rule 16 obstructed that duty to God and to the people. I read the paragraph of the Declaration of Independence for the whole body, that this is our North Star. This is our internal checks and balances on what we can say is good or bad law. This bill is good because it preserves life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And it is my ministry to come here and to remind everybody that we have an obligation and a duty to honor our Heavenly Father, to protect those three rights for every individual. We need a change of heart as well as a change of law. It is only by softening our hearts and placing our trust in our Heavenly Father that we can have true revolution away from the reign of comfortable secularism towards one that celebrates life and all the hard work, joys, and triumphs that come with it.
Thank you, Representative Beach. Representative Chandra Dillard is recognized to speak against the bill. Representative Bauer, for what purpose do you rise?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd ask that Representative Beach's remarks be in the journal, marked in the journal.
Mr. Beach submits those in writing. They will. Representative Dillard.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you, members. You have probably seen me at the well more today than you have any other point in this session. And why is that? The reason is because over the last 15 years that I have served in this body, without a doubt, this issue comes up every session. Every session. But this year, this is the first time where I think that we're getting close to destroying our lives, women's lives, and we're getting close to destruction of this state. And that calls for a change in behavior. In my 24 years of public service, I had a life of public service before I entered these chambers. There were two questions, and I still do this today, that I asked about legislation, projects, anything that I'm involved in, the budget. And those questions are, is this going to make life better? Because the first rule should be to do no harm. The second thought and question that I ponder is, what costs to what people? What costs to what people? And so, as we look at this particular bill, number 2, heartbeat number 2, it does a lot of harm. It does harm to women of all ages. What kind of harm? You've heard it today. Mentally, physically, and yes, spiritually, because it's a choice. It's hard to make a decision to have an abortion. I joined my colleague. I've never been pregnant. I've never had an abortion, had to make those decisions. But I had a friend who did in high school. Did not take it lightly. We all grieved together as a band of sisters, but it wasn't my decision to make, it was hers. And that's what brings us here today. We are taking a right from women to make decisions about what they should do about their bodies and their future. And we have heard a lot about the unborn child, Well, guess what? Anything as a woman, anything on me and in me belongs to me. I want to say that again. Anything on me or in me belongs to me, and I have the right to make the decision about what to do with any part of my body and anything in my body. If I want to have an operation to remove my thyroid, I make that decision. If I want to make a decision about a life-saving procedure that could be an abortion, I get the right to do that. And that is what we have heard, or I have heard from countless women beyond these chambers. Email after email. I go to meetings at home. Republican women and Democratic women, they get it. They simply want to make these choices. And yes, it's a tough choice. Yes, we all live with consequences of our decisions. But this bill is destructive in some other ways. It is destructive to our healthcare system. It is destructive to our doctors. I can't believe that we are going to put doctors in jail. We're putting doctors in jail. Does that make sense? I don't think that that's very helpful to anybody. This bill could wreck our economy. And I know you say at all costs. Well, no, that's not the way I look at things. We could prevent businesses from considering coming here. We could prevent women from wanting to move here, start a family, go to our higher institutions of education to be educated here, which is a talent drain, a loss of talent. The cost of having forced births is a cost to our child welfare system, which is falling apart in this state. I don't even know if you remember getting an email from Director Keck last summer when we were going through this. Did y'all look at those child abandonment numbers that have tripled? So people are having children and they're not taking care of them. They're giving them away. We're taking them away from their parents. What good is that? I have faith in the women of this state. We may pass a bill today, or you may pass a bill out today. I won't be voting for it. But the final end of this war will be with the women in this state, because I believe that they're going to show up in places that you never even dreamed of. I believe they're going to show up in this chamber. They're going to be more Heather Bowers in this chamber. Just remember, you heard it right here, right now. And so, as a legislator who took an oath, just like you, to do no harm to the Constitution, also to protect life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, well, guess what? That's what we're doing. We're only doing it for one segment you call the unborn child, which is not even scientifically correct, but I believe women have the right to life, liberty, and pursuit of excellence in their life. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Representative Dillard. Representative Henderson Myers is recognized to speak against the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
In the 21st century that we're living in today, the rights of the least of us are under attack. This bill tramples on the rights of women's rights to privacy, We have trampled on the rights of families. We have trampled on the rights of the medical community. South Carolina, as it stands, is a state with a shortage of medical personnel, doctors, nurses, and others similarly situated. This bill will also chill the doctors' ability to use their training and their experience. We currently have 15 counties in the state of South Carolina with no OBGYN. Lord have mercy. What are our people going to do in these 15 counties? I ask you again, Lord have mercy on us. Doctors are leaving. Nurses are leaving. And the question is why? Well, we know why. They have no ability to be able to use their professional judgment and training to practice medicine. There's the threat of criminal prosecution and fines. They are threatened with losing their license for which they gave so much work and so much input into. The reporting requirement in cases of rape and incest are harsh, requiring reporting to law enforcement. And then because of that, many may be afraid to report. Family members, they may be afraid because they have privacy concerns. There may be shame and humiliation in terms of family members, perhaps, that were involved in the rape and incest. And then we have major medical organizations that are against this bill. Practically all of them are. And then who else is against this? Most South Carolinians are against this. Did you know that? Polls conducted by the University of South Carolina, Winthrop College, the Gallup poll, and other polling companies show that 75 to 88% in South Carolina believe that abortion should remain legal. Now, these are our constituents. These are the people who brought us down here. These are the people who we have an obligation to make sure that their voices are heard, and we do what's best for South Carolinians. This will be a sad day for South Carolina, and it will be a sad day for families if we pass this fetal heartbeat bill. We will find ourselves hurting our own selves. We will need more mental health professionals because women forced to carry babies may suffer mentally and emotionally for being forced to do so. The cost of taking care of the increased birth of babies could lead to an economic crisis here in South Carolina. And for some, more poverty, meaning more resources will have to go out from this state to take care of them. We as a legislature and as legislators, as you know, we have no medical training. We should not be making medical decisions for women. Decisions have been made not on reliable data, but instead on our feelings, on our thoughts. Decisions are made instead on our personal opinions. What about a charge to keep we have? What about that instead of our personal opinions and views? As a Christian, the decision regarding abortion should be made between a woman and her God or her higher power. It is not a decision to be made by men and women in this chamber. It is not the place of South Carolina for the legislature to question the judgment of people or their doctors. Once again, we have trampled on the rights of women. We have trampled on the rights of South Carolina families. and we have trampled on the rights of the medical community here in South Carolina. I have but one thing to say, and that is, heaven help us all.
Thank you, Representative Henderson Myers. Representative Landing is recognized to speak for the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you, members of this chamber and all of those who are watching from home. This is a topic that is so charged for everybody, and it is one where no matter what I say tonight, it wouldn't change the minds of someone who felt the opposite, and no matter what you say, it wouldn't change my mind or all the people who sent me up here to the State House with their vote. But this week and in prior weeks, we've heard a lot of stories, especially in the last few days, we've heard a lot of stories about people who felt that we would be taking away women's rights, we would be limiting women, we would be hurting them, we would be destroying health care for them, and we would be doing many other things to hurt women. And as a woman who's not only a mother of 2 children, but also obviously a daughter and a granddaughter, I have a few things to say about that, because I believe strongly that the things I'm working hard to do here in the State House will not just help all South Carolinians, but will especially help women. I've worked my whole life very, very hard to be the best person I could be, and in so doing, I believe I've been able to demonstrate that women truly can have it all. And what I want to start with is my own personal story that I can share with you. I've got 2 or 3 quick ones. But the first one I want to share with you, I actually shared earlier in the year. And it's about a 21-year-old woman who fell in love and got married. And she really wanted to have a family, but for whatever reason, her doctor at the time told her that she would never be able to carry a child to term and be successful. She got married, she had a baby. She said, I love this man, I want to have a child. And she had that baby, but unfortunately, the doctors were right, and 72 hours later, she died. Now, that was my grandmother. And so a grandmother that I never got to know. So my mother was an only child. And because of that one woman's sacrifice, today there are 15 people who have lived incredible lives, worked hard, build their own families, and gone on, and we don't even know how many more generations there will be because of my grandmother's sacrifice. But you know, back in 1924, I don't really think she had a choice. I don't think she could have gone and gotten an abortion. If you think about what the world was like at that time, there were a lot of things attached to women's expectations. And among those, it would be shameful if somebody got pregnant outside of being married. And at that time, even if you were married, you certainly wouldn't be going to have an abortion, even if your life was at risk. So this bill today actually addresses some of those things, but society has also changed. Let's face it, today, we as a society accept the fact that everybody's not gonna wait until they're happily married to have relations, and they're not gonna wait until they're all grown up and ready and financially stable to start a family. So what we have on our side is that we actually have a culture that if we could take all this energy, all this anger, all this frustration, and if we could direct it towards embracing life, and we could actually do more and more and more for women who are facing what I would call a crisis pregnancy, a pregnancy that's unwanted, or a pregnancy that they didn't plan for, or a pregnancy that they're afraid of. If we could take that same energy level and direct it towards empowering her to be able to embrace life, to choose life, Now, this bill is not perfect. There's all kinds of things that need to be worked on, and we're going to work on those. But we're also doing other things in the State House this year. One of them, and I'm very proud to say I was a big part of talking about it earlier in the year, and I, like everyone else, I believe it was almost unanimous, voted for a lot of improvement on adoption laws. So if a young woman has a baby but really doesn't want to have to bring it to term, but because of this law has to do so, we're going to have greatly improved her ability to give up her child to a loving family for adoption. And it will be a hopefully way less painful, less long process and less expensive. We also, as a body here this year, are allocating a tremendous amount of money to do the right thing, to help organizations that do help women and help support young women who are facing difficult terms on a pregnancy. By the way, let me go back and say, I also worked for 2 years as a volunteer at the Crisis Pregnancy Center. So I can vouch directly for the things that we heard said earlier tonight about what women who come there are facing. I had to sit and listen to many different counseling sessions, including post-abortion counseling sessions. What many people might not realize is that there are very few organizations, including the abortion clinics, that offer post-abortion counseling, almost as if women don't need any help dealing with what they've just been through. But there are a lot of women that do. And the Low Country Pregnancy Care Center is the name of the one in our area in Charleston County, and it's in Dorchester County area, but it's in our area, the Low Country. But we have them all over the state. And these are organizations that are very pro-women. They're not just pro-life, they are pro-women. They want to help women, they want to make sure that they have the things they need. And what I can say is if we start directing some of this frustration, anger, even the protests, all the things that we've seen, and I mean on both sides, if we can direct that towards embracing life and empowering women, we can actually become a culture that is much more loving, much more caring, much more family-oriented. I want to close with 2 quick stories of people that I love dearly. The first one is a young woman who lives in the Low Country. I've known her for a number of years, and I've heard her story in many different ways. And when she was born in a different country, and she's now a citizen here in the United States. But when she was born with a twin, except that her mother aborted them, and her twin sister died. But she somehow managed to survive. And that young woman grew up and is one of the most beautiful, sweet, caring, and giving people I know. Her name is Renata Da Silva, and I asked permission to use her name because she's an incredible example. She's now married, a mother of a beautiful daughter, and this young woman from Brazil is such an icon to what can be, despite what was really a very sad choice that was made. And then the other one I wanted to share, I won't share the name because I didn't get a chance to get an okay on that, but I have a very, very dear friend who lives in the Low Country, who is a very successful person in the business world, has 2 beautiful children, one of the nicest, kindest people you'd ever meet. And he was born to a mother who was raped. But she made the choice to keep her child, and she did have a choice, but she made that choice to keep him, raised him, and he went on to become a very, very successful, wonderful human being that anybody that knows him would agree with me. So what I'm saying is, okay, are these stories where we shouldn't have exceptions? No, there are exceptions in this bill. This bill is trying to answer a lot of the hardest questions. But what I hope today, and I will be supporting this bill, I hope today that we can use this as a first step towards really working hard together. There were some amendments brought up, such as ones about increasing support for childcare. And I supported, as did many in this room, I think most of us, the First Steps program. We as a body need to do more and more and more to embrace life and to embrace a culture of loving and giving, and not a culture that focuses on a choice rather than the fact that, yes, there is a child there. Thank you so much for listening tonight, and I look forward to working with all of you together so that we can make life better for all South Carolinians. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Landing. Representative Trantham is recognized to speak in favor of the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Colleagues, I sat here for 2 days and I listened to many reasons to justify taking the life of a human being. I think Representative McCravey touched on some of those, so I won't go any further, but I think the one that stuck out to me the most was that that child may have chores that she is responsible for at home and doesn't need a baby to be one of them. PASS, P-A-S-S, if you've never heard of it, it's called post-abortion stress syndrome. These are some of the symptoms that a woman will have after she's had an abortion. Bouts of crying, depression, guilt, inability to forgive herself, intense grief, numbness, sexual problems, eating disorders, lower self-esteem. I can keep going. Drugs, alcohol, nightmares. I can go on and tell you that that is not the answer to the problem that she thinks she has. And one of the things that was mentioned is, what about the children that have no father at home? Or maybe they're growing up in poverty. I would be interested to see how many people would be sitting in this room right now if that was the deciding factor of whether or not you were going to be born. We don't all grow up in rich homes. We don't grow up, all of us grow up with fathers or mothers. But one of the things I really want to touch on before I walk away is I have so many people in my life that I've talked to that found out that they were pregnant. And when they went to the father of the child, they were told, you need to take care of that. They wanted the child. But with that one sentence, they knew that they were on their own and they didn't have the support of the father. So my message today to anyone that's watching or listening, to you boys, to you men, I'm going to say to you, you take care of that. You look at that woman, you look at that girl, and you tell her, I am going to help you raise this child because I helped you make it.
All right, next on the list we have Ms. Hennigan. Ms. Hennigan. Ms. Hennigan. Ms. Hennigan is recognized to speak against the bill. Ms. Hennigan.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I want to start off by thanking the ladies in the Senate, all of them over there, for the support that they gave us to fight for what we believe in. And so I really want to thank them. And I said, we're proud of you. Thank you for picking us up your swords from the sisters across the hall. It couldn't have said it any better. I appreciate that so much. But I also want to thank Heather Bauer, Annie McDaniel, Justin Bamberg, Jermaine Johnson, John King, Beth Bernstein, Gilda Cobb-Hunter, and all of you all, every one of you that stood up here and talked about this bill. And I stand here today to talk about women's rights. You know, I sincerely don't think, even with this bill, that any of us want to see anyone have an abortion. The thing that we're saying is that we want women to have rights, women's rights, and to deny women the right to make decisions for their own body is wrong. There's no other way to put it. It is wrong. What happened here today takes away the right of women to make reproductive decisions about their body. Reproductive freedom is what I call it. And to me, it is an overreach for our state to take away these rights. The core rights of women is to make autonomous decisions about their own body. That's what we're supposed to be able to do, and our reproductive functions. And it's sad that the Constitution does not guarantee women the same rights and protection that men have. And that has bothered me when I was sitting back there writing down some things that I wanted to say. And every woman should have sexual and reproductive rights, which means we should be entitled to equal access to health services like contraceptives and also safe abortion when necessary. But we should also have the right to choose if she wants to have children and then how many children she would like to have. But it's sad to say that government has had a long history of controlling women. I cannot think of any laws that give the government power to make decisions about the male body. You may know some, but I tried to find them and I could not find them. And it's a shame to say that Equal Rights Amendment still does not apply totally to women. And despite all the things we have accomplished, and we have accomplished a lot, even in this chamber as women, but we're still not free. We're not free. And when you control our body, you're taking away our freedom. And there's no other way to look at it. And I looked up something that it says, despite constitutional guarantees of gender equality, women globally enjoy only 75% of the legal rights of men. Now that's saying something, you all. It would make a difference to me if we spent all these hours like we have for last night, yesterday morning, last night, today, talking about the children that are here now, that's living. Children that can't even find how to get food, even if they're, they are suffering. Trying to decide whether we should have lunch programs in the school system, and still we have people trying to fight that for breakfast and lunch. And many of those kids don't even have a place to stay. If we took the time to be able to help these parents, to help the children that are already here, but we have the tendency that once they're born, we forget about those kids. And something is wrong with that picture, my brothers and sisters, because all of you are my brothers and sisters. Now, I want to leave you with this. The right to our body means that we have the power and agency to make choices without having someone else decide for us. These are our bodies. This is my body. That's Gilda's body. That's all of our body. We have a right, and we should be able to make the decision about our body ourselves without any men, and yes, women, telling us what we should do, what we can't do, and spending 30 or 40 hours trying to tell us why we're not. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Hannigan. Next is Dion Tatter. Mr. Tatter. Mr. Tatter is recognized to speak against the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members of the body, let me start by saying simply that recognizing that a woman is capable of making her own medical decisions, and by recognizing that she has a right to choose what to do with her body, does not indicate that you are pro-abortion. We're conflating the two issues. You can agree that a woman has a right to choose, and you can still be against abortion. women having the right to choose, being against abortion, those are not synonymous. They're not the same. This is not a game. This is not, we're not playing with people's lives here, but that's what this bill is doing. We don't have any empathy for women to respect their right to privacy. We don't have understanding of what a woman goes through, a woman and the people that she loves, the people in her family, what she goes through in the moments of making those decisions. A lot of people seem to believe that by a woman having an abortion or choosing to do so, she's gracefully saying, let's kill a baby. That is not what goes through her mind. You don't understand the trauma behind a woman have to make that decision. It is difficult. This is a difficult topic, a very difficult subject, and I don't think that anybody believes in killing babies. That is not why we're here. Simply saying that it's okay for a woman to have the right to choose. But what we're doing today is making women and their families and loved ones pay the price for political agendas. We've been here before. You said it, we passed fetal heartbeat. Y'all passed fetal heartbeat. We told you it was unconstitutional. You passed it. The Supreme Court said it was unconstitutional. You lost, but that's why we're here today. Sore losers. And now we attack women once again. And the stories that I've heard, those are beautiful stories. To hear that a woman went through a traumatic experience, a woman was abused and still carried out that birth, that those beautiful souls are here today and they can tell the story that their mom could have aborted them, but they're here today. And you know what the common theme was, the common word? Those women had a choice. They chose to have those children, and that is beautiful in itself. But what about the women who don't want to do that? What about the women who we're bypassing this, forcing them to have that child? Do they not too have a choice? Are we not all children of God? The difference is, I respect your beliefs, and I believe that some of you genuinely believe in what you're saying, and I think some of you are making political points. The difference is, I have a right to believe what I believe, and I respect that you all have a right to believe what you believe, but I will never force my beliefs on you, because that's not my job. That's between you and your God. At the end of the day, we can't judge people and dictate how they live. You have a right to your opinion and your beliefs, and we can respect that. But that does not mean your belief is the right belief. That doesn't mean that somebody else's belief is wrong. We don't determine moral beliefs or right and wrong. The passion that I've seen for the unborn, I wish you all had the same passion for the kids who are living today with no food to eat. I wish you wept for those kids who are living today and have no place to live. I wish you cared about the kids who are living today who are abused and get lost in the system because they have no parents that love them. If you did, then half of the bills that sit in our committees collecting dust now would be taken up. But yet you continue to ignore those issues and try to force your personal beliefs on other people. That ain't right. But I want people, again, to pay attention to three things, three major messages that we're sending by passing this bill. Number one, that women are not capable of making informed decisions about their own bodies, which I disagree with. Number two, that medical doctors, with all of their expertise and medical training and years of experience, are not intelligent enough to make medical decisions with or for their female patients, which I disagree with. And number three, last but certainly not least, that the voice of the matters don't vote to you. The voice of the voters don't matter to you. As my colleague said earlier, what are you afraid of? People are quick to say, if a person is not guilty, why did they run? Well, let me ask you this. If you are so confident and firm that your constituents want to ban abortion, then why not let them vote and tell you what they think? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Tedder. Ms. Remus is recognized to speak for the bill. Ms. Remus.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thanks for my Republican women standing behind me today. Not all of us in this chamber feel the same as the Democratic women. Most everyone in here, I believe, are mothers. We all were faced with whether that was a happy decision, a surprise decision, but we all up here that are mothers found out that day that we were pregnant. A lot of you already know my story, so I won't rehash that. But we've sat here for the past few days listening to so many mistruths. Like a woman is not capable of making that decision when she's young, or she's not capable of making that decision when she's older, or her life is not the best circumstances. Well, I guess I've become the poster child for the pro-life movement and the women in the House, and I'm okay with that, and I wear that with a badge of honor. But it doesn't change the fact that we've all been through it together too. We've all got some kind of story that we need to tell, or we've had a close call with a baby, or we've had a miscarriage, or maybe even someone up here's had an abortion. I don't know. I don't question that. I don't ask that of my women. I just know that it's not something that the women that stand behind me support. But they do support me and so many other people in the state who are fighting, just like us, to prevent the genocide of children. You can call it what you want. I've heard you call it a chemical fluttering. I've heard you call it a glob of tissue. I've heard you call it a fetus. But not one of you women who stood up here, or men, said, my baby, my baby. I think a lot of you should be happy you learned the word autonomy. You've never used it in your life, so you don't know what that means. I have autonomy over my body. I make decisions for my body. But y'all want separation of church and state? But the one thing my mom and dad did teach me was right from wrong. Yeah, I do have God in my life, but I know that murder is murder. If something's alive and it's growing, and it stops, it's dead now. If it has a heartbeat 1 minute and it doesn't no longer, it is now dead. So what do you call that? What do you call that when a 23-week baby is going through an abortion and you can see it on a screen as you're sucking his parts out and he's trying to get away from that instrument? What do you call that? Justification for the mother who did not want that baby? I was 16. I did not want a baby. Congratulations to all of you. Your moms didn't abort you. You're here fighting for others, making decisions for them. The voiceless that you're talking about, be a village for those women. Don't make them make the worst decision of their life that they are never going to forget. Could you imagine being at home with a couple of pills and this comes out of you bloody, full fingers? It's got everything formed. He's just not big yet. You would be okay with a woman going through that, seeing that, because it'll make her life better? No, this is going to give her nightmares. This is going to tear her up for the rest of her life. We've had story after story of where that is the case, and I don't know one woman, one friend of mine who has done that and said, well, gosh, my life is great now. I tout my abortion. I wear a badge of honor because I killed a baby. Be a village for those women. Tell them there's another option. Yes, pro-life means after birth, throughout their whole life. Let's teach our young people how to be responsible. Let's not talk about the rape and incest, the 1%. Let's talk about the everyday situations that all of us have been in. The Plan B pill. It hasn't been really talked about much. A woman has 72 hours to take that pill. If you're already pregnant, the package says you're still going to be pregnant. It only stops it if you're not yet pregnant. If you have we were joking about it all week, sometimes sperm are slow swimmers. And some of you were conceived because you had slow swimmers, but we're not going to talk about that. Like many of you said, I was elected because I am pro-life. People liked my stance on things, and just like Mr. White said, he's here because people wanted him to. And if there's so many women in this state that want us to vote another way, why are you guys sitting here, you Republicans? You're here because of your pro-life stance and that you want to save children. It is a win today. It's a win today for all the babies that are yet to be born. They're going to thank you. We just had Mother's Day. Hopefully all of you that have your mom still with you, you thanked her. Thank you. It was not a choice. Just like mine, my life was not easier. Way hard. Going to school with a child, working 40 hours a week, raising her. Yeah, my life really sucked, especially my dating life. It was horrible. No man wanted a girl that had a kid. Oh, she's got to get a babysitter. But it didn't matter. Every person knows right from wrong. Oh, she doesn't know how to be a mom. She's 16. God gave me those maternal instincts, no matter how old I was. It just comes out and you figure it out. And I saw her little face, made me work 10 times harder. Looking at that little face, Mom, 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 it got my butt in gear. And I want to thank all the women that are fighting this fight with me. Thank you for your stances. Thank you for being a voice for those. And it really saddens me that we all are not in the same place here, that we all don't feel the same way. But we fight for the unborn because they don't have a voice. They are yet to have a voice, but they are very much alive. And guess what? What do you call a doctor that graduates last in his class? A doctor. They don't have all the answers. And I can tell you today, the devil's a liar. And if your doctor tells you that child is not going to be just perfect, well, I don't know about any one of you in here. None of us are. None of us are perfect. But we're here. Thanks.
Thank you, Ms. Remus. Ms. Cromer is recognized to speak for the bill. Ms. Cromer. What's your point of order, Mr. Bamberg? Mr. Bamberg, we have a tough time when you rotate desk and your name's not associated there, and Regan Clark is not up here. Who's? It's not clicking. That was not working. Get somebody else's.
Oh, we're on. There we go. Oh, sorry about that. My point of order is simple. I guess how is anybody in here supposed to know unless my mother told them that maybe I'm here because she exercised her right to choice prior to.
That is not a point of order. That is a part of a debate, and that's improper, and I rule you out of order on that. Thank you.
Yes, sir, Mr. Speaker.
Ms. Cromer, you're recognized to speak for the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you for everyone for being here and fighting for what your constituents sent you here for. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for bringing us in and organizing all of this. I know that wasn't easy. Everybody's ready to be done with session, but life is important. And like we discussed earlier, as mentioned, the cost of being here and the cost of how much things cost and how expensive it is. but you cannot put a price tag on a life. I asked someone earlier this week, what's the life of your child worth? What would you give to save your child's life? And these are things that we need to consider when we talk about money, when we just passed the largest budget in history that's bloated with a lot of pork. Life is life. What would you do to save your child? We hear about the babies that their moms chose to have them instead of an abortion, the beautiful babies that are here on earth. When we get to heaven, there's going to be a lot more babies there, and they're going to be just as beautiful and perfect as the ones that are here. And we need to work together and save as many lives as we can. The government is not in the life-saving business. We need to come together as communities, as churches, and people need to reach out to those and know that where the help is available to. We need to help these mamas make easier decisions for life. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you everyone again for being here.
Thank you, Ms. Cromer. Mr. Jermaine Johnson is recognized to speak against the bill. Mr. Johnson.
Thank you so much, Mr. Speaker. You know, over the past couple of days, it's been quite contentious in here. It's been all this debate back and forth, lots of arguing. And I want to take a second to thank the sister senators from across the hall for doing what they did, for standing up and for standing in unison, for standing together and getting on one accord. You know, I know they don't all agree on everything, but they stood together. I also want to thank our Democratic women. You know, we saw them stand together and bring their amendments in, and they huddled and they did what they did and became, you know, known as the Mighty Eight. And I want to thank them. But I also want to thank the Republican women who were just standing up here together also, you know, standing strong together and doing what they believe is right. Because you want to know something? Myself, I will never have to worry about going out late night and being assaulted by a man and having to bear whatever happened to me in that situation. I will never have to worry about being a little girl and being molested or going through a situation and being raped and knowing what the outcome of that will be to my little body. I will never have to worry about making a decision with my doctor whether to save the baby's life or to save my life. I will never have to worry about that, which is why I've always advocated for women to come together on this issue and let us know what they recommend, because I believe that the women in this body wholeheartedly have all of the knowledge, all the skills, all of the experiences to come up with something that works for all of them. Now, I'm not saying that a father's voice doesn't matter, but because, like I said, I will never have to worry about life and death when it comes to the birth of my child. I just have to worry about taking care of my wife and making sure that my wife is healthy and making sure that my wife is comfortable and making sure that my wife is happy. That's what I have to worry about. Making sure that I protect my family, because I will die for my family. And I don't believe in abortion. No, I don't. But I do not believe in coming in between a woman and her decision with her doctor. I do not believe in stepping in between a woman and her family decisions. I don't believe in that. And I think when we're putting our hands and meddling in people's private affairs, I think that's just a step too far that we can't go. But now we know that I'm not going to change anybody's minds in here and get anybody to vote against this bill. We know we're not going to change. Everybody's got their minds made up. But what that means now is the work begins now. The real work begins right now. That means making sure health care is better for our young people. That means making sure we have more qualified doctors in this state. That means making sure that we have better education in this state. That means fixing our DSS system. That means fixing our water issues. That means fixing our roads. That means fixing our system in general. And that also means us in here as leaders of this state working together to make lives better for everybody. That means we have to put the pettiness aside. This week, we've heard individuals trying to take us back. But today, I had the privilege of standing shoulder to shoulder with my good friend, Brandon Cox. And we stood out there and we talked about a great American hero. And we stood together and we talked about how this man did everything he could do for the state of South Carolina. And that's what it's gonna take. It's gonna take us standing together, united, for all the young people that are coming in here. Because we're going to see more young people coming in this state. People are moving to this state in droves right now. They're moving here in droves, not because of you and me, but because of what this state offers them. The freedom that we have here, the love that we have here, the camaraderie that we have here, the sweet tea that we have here. Everything that we have to offer is why people are coming here. And it is time for us to put this pettiness aside. And let's work together to make lives better for these children that are coming here. Because we truly believe in the best of all of these young people. I believe in every young person that has ever come across my desk. All of you in here know that. I don't care if these kids are black, white, Mexican, Asian. You know I come talk to those kids because I believe in them. And one day they will replace me. And one day they will be the best of what we're doing here. You know, the best thing that I discovered for myself when I got elected is I was sent a picture of an individual from my old high school, and it was a young white kid, and he was doing a presentation on me. He was doing a presentation on how proud he was of me. He was looking up to me. He was acting like he could be me. He wanted to be me. And I said, man, that was the most proudest moment of my election of my time, because I saw a young white kid who said he wanted to be like this tall black guy. He wanted to be like me. And I never thought in my life that I would ever have a young, small person, a young white kid that came from a whole different background that wanted to be me. So I think we need to move forward in this state. Put the pettiness behind us. Let's not let people bring us back. Those days are over with. It's time to move forward. Let's move stronger together, and let's move forward for the kids of South Carolina. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Mr. Alexander is recognized to speak against the bill. Mr. Alexander.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I won't be here long for the opportunity to give my colleagues behind me some time. You know, Mr. Speaker, all of us bring our experiences to this chamber, whether it be black, white, blue, green, Democrat, Republican, male and female. All of us bring our experiences into this chamber. And one thing about our experiences, it doesn't matter who you are, is that your experiences are not bad. They are different. And I think it's important that we come to the realization that being different, seeing things different, is not bad nor evil. It is just different. Now, in my position, I don't believe in abortions, but my experiences, particularly with my relationship with my God, allow other folks to be free to choose. My God have empowered me to allow you to be free to choose. That's how free I am in my relationship with God. And I have no right, no authority on earth or in heaven to take that right away. That's different, but it is neither evil nor bad. It is just different. And I think, and I challenge all of us to learn how to live with one's differences. Because that's what we bring to the chamber. I'm not like you, and you ought to be glad that you're not like me. Because all of my experiences have not been as good as they should, just as your experiences. But I've learned how to accept one's differences and allow them to be free to choose. We are saying with this piece of legislation, I don't like your difference and I don't like your choice, so I am going to intervene. I'm going to intervene on your right to choose. I'm going to stop you from making the choice that you want to make. That's what we're telling our mothers and our sisters and our nieces and our aunts, that I am going to take your right away. I'm going to take your right away. I pray that as we move on, that we allow people to be free to choose.
Thank you, Mr. Alexander. Ms. Davis is recognized to speak for the bill. Ms. Davis.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Jermaine, I want you to know that I respect you a tremendous amount. What you said here at the well was just exactly where we need to end this, right? That we have a bright future for our children here in the state of South Carolina. And if we work together, we will make sure that our children thrive and prosper. So I just wanted you to know that I appreciated your remarks and I appreciate you. I believe, over the last couple of days, we've heard from a lot of women. And I think we all realize that women's voices are important. And women's voices are important in particular in what we're talking about here today. And let me tell you why I'm standing here advocating on behalf of this bill and why this is important to me. And it's to me about the baby's right to life. And I'm going to give you a really short example of why that I think that. And it's a personal experience, something that happened with me. I have two sons. My youngest son, he came when I was a little older in life. After having carried him around for 8 months or so, I had gained 60 pounds. I was very miserable, as you might imagine. But 2 weeks before his due date, and I'm going to get a little graphic here, so I apologize up front for that. But about 2 weeks before he was due, I woke up one morning about 5 o'clock in the morning. The bed was wet. I was wet. I'm thinking, oh, my water broke. It wasn't that. It was blood. So, of course, the first thing I did was call my doctor. And I asked him, what can I do to save my baby? What can I do to save my baby? He said, you just get to the hospital as fast as you can. So we called my mother-in-law to come over to stay with the other children. We got in the car. My husband drove all the way to Charleston, about a 40-minute drive on a regular day. I have no idea how fast he did it that early morning. Running traffic lights. I get about halfway to Charleston, and I can taste the blood in my mouth. I don't know if any of you have ever experienced that before. I thought that I was dying, and I thought my child was dying. And I said to myself, when I get to that hospital, I'm going to tell that doctor, save my baby. You don't need to worry about me. Save my baby. So I always think about this particular topic in those terms. And I think we've talked about how we all have different life experiences. That is my life experience. That is where I come from when I talk about this topic. And when I think about the right of the life for a baby, for a child in utero. So that's where I come from on this. Now I'm going to talk a little bit more about where we're going, right? This year we've done great work on adoption.
In our most recent budget, we appropriated in excess of $2.4 million to crisis pregnancy centers that will benefit mothers and families across our entire state. We've expanded access to birth control, so it's accessible directly from pharmacists through legislation passed just last year. And in our most recent budget, we appropriated almost $2 million to programs that provide access to contraception for under and uninsured South Carolinians. And we've expanded paid family leave to not only our state employees, but to our teachers as well. So we have to continue to focus on those things that we're going to do to make the lives of South Carolinians better. But I want you to remember one thing, and that is, to me, a baby is a blessing. One thing that I forgot to tell you. When I got to the hospital and my baby was born, my husband came to me and he said, "Honey, what do you want to name him?" We hadn't finally decided on a name. And I said, "His name is John." That means God's gracious gift. So let's don't ever forget that our children are our most gracious gifts. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Ms. Davis. Ms. Erickson is recognized. Speak for the bill. Ms. Erickson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Ladies and gentlemen, I don't normally take the well on this issue. I don't air my personal thoughts on a very delicate and difficult subject. But I'd like to thank everyone. I'd like to thank you for the decorum, for the most part, in this body. This is an emotional issue. It's a heartfelt issue. It has affected all of us in some way or another. We all come to this body with our own experiences, as Representative Davis has said, and many others have said. I had one pregnancy that sent me 40 days in the hospital waiting on a miracle of birth. 40 days of waiting. It's a long time to think, ponder, and want that child to be okay. Didn't get to hold her for a week. Now she's the wonderful mother of 3 beautiful boys. And I had one pregnancy that took less than 3 hours, and I was like, okay, God, I get it. It's a miracle. Thank you for letting me have one that's fast. And Josh has a daughter of his own and another one on the way. So I understand. It's a miracle. Representative Davis is right. And I don't believe anyone in this body doesn't believe that a child is a gift from God. I don't believe anyone disagrees with that statement. I also don't believe that we're so far from each other in thinking that women choose to have an abortion because it's something they want to do. I don't believe that either. And I think we can make those assumptions and we'd be wrong. I do, however, think that there are rules in place for all of us in how we work in society. There are norms that society can be comfortable with and norms that they're not. And this is one of the most difficult issues for us as a society to grasp our arms and our hearts and our heads around. It's very complicated. For me, however, it becomes, as many people here, the life of the child. And the reason that the Declaration of Independence states life first carries great weight with me. It does not escape me that we have life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. It's not guaranteed happiness, it's the pursuit of that. But life is something that is guaranteed and very plainly stated as number one. This bill is not perfect. And you know what? It's made of human hands, so we should not expect it to be. But it is good because it protects life. It also protects the health and well-being of mothers. It provides parents the opportunity to make decisions when faced with horrible, fatal fetal anomalies. Thoughts that I had when I was waiting those 40 days. It protects women and girls who are sexually assaulted and have had to face incest. And, you know, we've talked a lot about, Jermaine, you mentioned the great state of South Carolina we love so much. I want people to come here, but I don't want them to come here because we're the easiest place to get an abortion. I really don't. I think we're judged by how we treat the least of us. And I think those children are very important. I do not discount the mothers. These women are doing the best they can. But the guidance of government, there is a place for that. And the rule of law has a place as well. Now, I'm a person of faith, but I don't believe that I push it on you too much. I hope I don't. I believe faith is a very personal choice. I think it's something we all have to find our way in life through. And it's sometimes it's the most important thing, and I think it should be, but in other times it sits and takes a back seat. We ebb and flow as life takes us through the journey. But I am always an advocate for children, and I think you would know that about me if you've watched me at all. So I think that we are, as a state, doing the best we can. As Representative Davis mentioned, we have put money into funding for help. We'll continue to do that if I'm part of this body. We also, one thing that didn't get mentioned, and I got to commend Representative Crawford and others, our safe havens for children so that parents who cannot handle what's happening to them in their lives have a good place to go and leave that child so that the child can have help. We've increased what DSS is doing and the funding that they've got for the children who need help in those situations and families that need those situations. Speaker Smith, you've done an incredible job on the abortion discussion and camaraderie through it. And I know camaraderie is not the perfect word, but it's the best we can do in this body when we disagree at such different odds of places. You've also championed adoption, Speaker Smith, and that means a lot to me. Thank you. So today, we get to wrap this up. But as Jermaine mentioned, it's just the beginning. We've got to do a better job of moving forward, keeping children as the focus, embracing those mothers, helping our families, and making South Carolina proud of the choices that we make. So together we can do better. Holding hands will be successful. And even the sisters who have had to disagree on this issue, I know we'll be better together and we'll get it done because we can and we choose to. The passion in this room is very important. And I thank each and every one of you, especially that incredible staff we have who keep us all going so well. Thank you for our Sergeant at Arms and all the folks who've kept us safe. And Mr. Speaker, I appreciate everything the body has done, and I would move for passage.
Thank you, Ms. Erickson. Mr. Ott's recognized to speak against the bill. Mr. Ott, just for purposes, you have 8 minutes and 54 seconds.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Happy that I have the opportunity to address you now at the end. Certainly want to say thank you to Ms. Erickson for acknowledging a lot of what I feel, and that is the complexity of this issue. I am often in awe and sometimes even envious of those folks who are able to stand up here and make it sound so simple and make it appear to be so easy for them, whether it is or it isn't, because it certainly has not been for me. Serving in this body for the last 10 years. I want to say thank you to my House Democratic Caucus members for putting up with me over the course of those last 10 years as I have navigated this issue over and over and over again. I often try to explain to people that ask me what my thoughts on abortion are, that I'm kind of like that last option at the end of those old exams where it said all of the above. Right? Because I view myself as pro-life. I also view myself as pro-choice when the circumstances arise and lend to that. I am certainly anti-abortion, like I've heard many of my colleagues stand up here and submit to you today, that no one that I know is pro-abortion, not this first one. And I don't think you've heard that at all over the course of these last 48 hours in the debate, however you want to try to spin it. And let me tell you why. Because it is a baby. It is a human being. that is developing in the womb of its mother. That is my belief. That is what I certainly believe my faith tells me, but I also believe that's medically accurate. And so I believe because it's a baby and a human, that human should be afforded rights. Absolutely. I also believe that that mother should be afforded rights. And the situation that we are always faced with is whether we want to acknowledge it or not, sometimes those rights don't always link up perfectly. Sometimes they conflict with each other. And so how do you handle that complicated situation when two individuals that are uniquely entwined together have conflicting issues that have to be ironed out? It's a difficult situation, and it's one that I've always struggled with. Which is why when I came into this body, abortions were not allowed after 24 weeks. That was the standard when I was first elected. The first bill that I voted for was the Pain Capable Act. I want to say that was sometime around 2015. And we said so that when a baby is able to detect pain, we were not going to allow any abortions past that point. That dropped the 24 down to somewhere around the 21 week period. Fast forward to 2000 and I want to say 20 with the heartbeat bill, probably one of probably the singular most lonely feeling that I've experienced in this body, when I made it clear and known to my caucus members that I would be voting for that bill because of the reasons that I have submitted and put forward to you today. I was not met with threats, might have been met with a little bit of disappointment, but I wasn't met with threats, and I think, you know, a lot of folks in my caucus respected my opinion on that and allowed me to move forward with that stance. I did that because I felt like it was the right thing to do, absolutely. I also did it because the courts had not ruled yet. Supreme Court had not addressed the issue. So even though I knew it was a dramatic and radical jump from where we were at 21 down to 6, to me, you know, I said, I'm gonna go with it. Well, we all know what the outcome of that was. That decision, that legislation was found to be unconstitutional. As an elected member who takes my oath to this state and to my constituents very seriously, I cannot turn my back on that ruling. I cannot do that, nor do I think that you should either. And that's why today I stand in opposition to a bill that has been crafted more restrictively than the one that just 4 to 5 short months ago was found to be unconstitutional. I do not believe that by changing a few words around magically makes it so. And I believe that it too will be found to be unconstitutional, and therefore, ladies and gentlemen, we will be back here again. And that's why I've heard many of these same speeches given from this very podium. And I hate that I feel like I'm becoming desensitized to what I hear, because it is repetitive. So what I want to leave you with, ladies and gentlemen, is I think that we have always addressed this problem from the wrong perspective. It has always been a debate over how do we limit more abortions. Rather than figuring out why and addressing the root cause of why women feel like an abortion is their only option. That's what we need to be focusing on if we want to save more babies' lives. Provide women with more of an option. And we do a good job in some cases, but it shouldn't take me 2 years working with a senator to be able to pass a law that says pharmacists can distribute and prescribe contraceptives to make it easier for women to get it. It took 2 years to get that done. Shouldn't be the case. So that's what I think our focus needs to be. And I'll also say this. I think we need to choose some better leaders on this issue. Like I said, the leaders that have been taking us down these paths over the last few years ultimately have taken us from 24 weeks to about 22. And I think it's been done that way because it has divided us more than it has brought us together. The folks that I talk to back home, when I don't try to convince them of my views and I ask them to tell me theirs, I find out we're pretty similar. They're conflicted on the issue as well. They struggle with it also. Talk to a lot of men. I would love to see my wife step up and do some of the things that I've heard here today, but guess what? If it's going to risk my wife's life, I'm not going to ask her to have that baby. I haven't been in that position myself. I don't know how I would react. But we can't just brush it to the side and act like it would be an easy answer. There are so many other nuances and complexities surrounding this issue that cannot be discredited. So I ask you to consider that. I ask you to consider, do we want to keep doing this over and over and over again? Do we want to allow these same people to drag us into these types of debates where we end up not liking each other? Or do we want to pick a different direction? I hope we'll do the latter.
Thank you, Mr. Ott. Mr. Gilliard, we have a minute and 1 second. You're next on the list. Speak fast. It's because Mr. Ott talked too long.
All right, thank you, Mr. Speaker. 1 minute, I'll take that, but I did have my name on the desk much earlier than a lot of people in here, but I'll take that too, okay? Ladies and gentlemen, and I heard the representative, and I respect everybody, the sound of my voice up here, and I want to compliment the women who stood up since a week ago up till now. You ladies ought to be commended. You have been seen throughout the world. We believe in Charleston that you have won the women over, both Democrat and Republicans. So you ought to be commended. For the Republicans, women, I admire anybody could get up here and stand up and tell stories of what they have experienced. Nothing wrong with that. I respect that. But in America, we have to understand we have classism in America. And when you have classism, the stories are different. We have to understand that. There are rich people, there are poor people. There are people who think they are privileged, and those type of people have blinders on. They don't want to face reality. I get that. We get that. But we should not stop there. This is a place of compromise, no matter how much we disagree. And for the gentleman who came, the representative who came up here, and I'm saying this out of love and respect.
Mr. Gilliard, I hate to tell you this, but your time has expired.
Use the word Indian.
Mr. Gilliard, your time has expired.
Indigenous
Mr. Gilliard, your time has expired.
But I was up here earlier. Mr. Gilliard.
All right, pending question is passage of Senate Bill 474. Roll call is required and ordered. Voting on the board.
Oh, I'm sorry. We call Spencer. Birthday or something?
All members voted. Time has expired. Polls are closed. Clerk will tabulate by a vote of 82 to 33. The Senate Bill 474 receives second reading. We hereby recur the morning hour. Mr. Forrest moves that we recur the morning hour.
Thank you, Ross.
All in favor signify by saying
Thank
aye.
you, Juanita.
All opposed, ayes have it. The clerk will read.
Had to say it once. We have an introduction, we have Beaufort delegation, committee reports, Senate 335.
Committee report.
We have a House resolution by Ms. Erickson celebrating 67th Beaufort Water Festival.
Ms. Erickson requests to add the roll of the House. Is there objection? Hearing none. Adopted.
Howard and Bernstein honoring Cardinal Newman boys soccer.
Mr. Howard requests to add the roll of the House. Is there objection? Hearing none. Adopted.
We have an introduction by Mr. Stavronakis congratulating Westminster Presbyterian.
Mr. Stavronakis requests to add the roll of the House. Any objection? Hearing none. Adopted.
We have a concurrent resolution by Stuart Ovaltine Jones inviting and directing the Department of Transportation to name a bridge.
Refer to the Invitations Committee.
Mr. Hartnett and Happy Landing honoring Porter-Gaud.
Adopted.
Mr. Hartnett, Ms. Landing honoring Porter-Gaud.
Adopted.
Mr. Hart and Ms. Landing, Porter-Gaud Tennis.
Adopted.
Mr. McCabe, congratulating Rhonda Parrish.
Mr. McCabe requests to add the roll of the House. Is there objection? Hearing none. Adopted.
Mr. McCabe honoring Nicole M. Barker.
Mr. McCabe asks to add the roll of the House. Is there objection? Hearing none. Adopted.
Mr. Weeks, congratulating Alice Drive Middle School.
Adopted.
Mr. McCabe honoring Allison Scott Young.
Adopted.
And Miss Jennifer Sandy.
Mr. McCabe requests to add the roll of the House. Is there objection? Hearing none. Adopted.
And Bridget McCray. Yes, sir.
Mr. McCabe asks to add the roll of the House. Is there objection? Hearing none. Adopted.
And one more from Leonidas Stavronakis, Westminster Pres of Charleston.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Mr. Stavronakis asks to add the roll of the House. Is there objection? Hearing none. Adopted. All right, Mr. Howard moves that the House do now adjourn to meet in 15 minutes, which will be at 9:50. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, ayes have it. Members, please stay close. We're going to have a roll call. We're going to move through as quickly as we can. So, 9:40. Mr. Clerk is wrong for the first time in his life, 9:40. Members and guests, please rise as we're led in prayer by a chaplain to be followed by the Pledge of Allegiance.
Let us pray. Gracious God, we give you thanks for these men and women who faithfully give of their time and energy for the sake of the people of South Carolina. Care for them as they finish this work today and they will return home to their families. Keep them in your care and safety. Thanks be your love for faithfulness to all of us. And now, may the Lord bless you and keep you. May the Lord make his face to shine upon you. The Lord look upon you with kindness and give you his peace. Amen.
Amen. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, thank you for hanging with us, Chaplain. All right, members, we are in the roll call. Please record your presence. We're in the roll call. As soon as we get a quorum, we're going to go ahead and get started. So members are getting your seats. All right, members, y'all record your presence quickly. We're going to close roll call. If you want to get paid, rush to your desk. All members recording their presence. All members recording their presence. All right, have all members recorded their presence? All right, polls closed. Clerk will tabulate. Polls are closed. Clerk will tabulate. Quorum is present. All right, we're on the calendar. Clerk will read. We're on conference reports. Clerk will read.
Thank you. Conference report, Senate Bill 96, Senator Campson, Wooten, Hennigan, and Elliott.
Mr. Wooten moves that we simple adjourn debate. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed? Ayes have it. Debate is hereby adjourned on the conference report. We are now in second reading, local uncontested bills. Clerk will read.
Senate 335, Senator Davis. This is a bill from the Beaufort delegation.
Beaufort, are y'all okay with this bill? You ready to go?
Where is it? Wait a minute.
All right. Pending question is second reading of local uncontested bill Senate 335 concerning public service district commissions.
Hang on, I'm coming.
Hilton Head.
It's not on
Roll
the
calls required and ordered.
I'm coming.
Voting on the board.
It wasn't put in the calendar. Just a second. I got you.
There's All right, have all members voted? Have all members voted? Any objection, cutting roll call short? It's a local uncontested bill, Mr. Moss. Very important you vote on it. All right, any objection, cutting roll call short? I've never seen so many people want to vote on local bills. Any objection, cutting roll call short? Hearing none, polls closed. Clerk will tabulate. By a vote of 105-2, Senate Bill 335 received second reading. We are now in second reading, statewide uncontested bills. Clerk will read.
4486. 4486 is a bill by Representative Burns, and this is without reference. It also is not on the calendar. Did you get some?
Mr. Burns is recognized to explain the bill. Mr. Burns. It is 4486. I'm sorry.
The other day we spent a lot of time debating this.
Ms. Burns, hold on one second. Yes, we don't have a calendar on everybody's desk, so I apologize. This is a bill to amend the South Carolina Code laws by adding a section to authorize Department of Health DHEC to create a pilot project that allows certain septic tank installers to conduct certain septic tank field evaluation tests for the department. So Mr. Burns is recognized to explain the bill. Mr. Burns.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you, colleagues. I'll go very quickly. The other day, we had a tremendously long debate on septic tanks, trying to get inspections done in areas across the state whereby they're 6 months behind, a year behind, et cetera, et cetera. And in our meetings in Greenville with the director, they didn't feel like they had the authority to do what we were asking them to do. And so we've asked them to consider letting the septic installers do what you and I would call the perk test. And we're not mandating now that they have to do it. We've met with DHEC, we've met with their attorneys, we've met with everybody in here that had objections, and we've come together, I hope, we think, and we've come together to let them, at their discretion, how they train them and which ones they choose in areas across the state to enact a pilot program to speed up the process where people can get their perk test done, which will let them go get their building permits, and they won't have to wait 6 months or a year to start building. With that, I'll be happy to take any questions.
I see no questions, so the pending question is second reading of House Bill 4486. Roll call is required in order. Voting on the board. All right, have all members voted? Any objection, cutting roll call short? Hearing none, polls closed. Clerk will tabulate by a vote of 115-0. The House Bill 4486 received second reading. We are now in withdrawals of objections or requests to debate. Presuming we have no bills on the contested calendar, there are none. All right, we're now in the unanimous consent request period. Any unanimous consent request? Hearing none. We are now on Senate amendments. House Bill 3728. Miss Erickson, Chairwoman Erickson is recognized to explain what the Senate did on this bill and her recommendation. This is a critical race theory / parent transparency and education bill. So Ms. Erickson is recognized to explain what the Senate did.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Ladies and gentlemen, there's some nuances in this bill that we need to work out, the cause of action and some of the parental requirements of participation. I would move to non-concur so we can meet and work out the differences.
All right. Ms. Erickson requests that the House non-concur in the Senate amendments to House Bill 3728. Roll call.
Transparency and education. Yes, ma'am. I'm asking for non-concurrence so that we can sit down and talk about it. It goes to conference committee.
All right.
Any more questions?
I think we answered all the questions informally. So it's third reading. We're ready to go. So we're going to relax the rules a little bit. All right. So Ms. Erickson requests that the House non-concur in amendments, voting on the board, voting red to concur, green to concur, red to non-concur. Have all members voted? All members voted. Any objection, cutting roll call short? Hearing none, polls closed. Clerk will tabulate. By a vote of 3 to 111, the House non-concurs in the Senate amendments. All right. We're on third reading, statewide contested bills. Clerk will read.
Senate 474, Senator Grooms, as amended.
Pending question is third reading of Senate Bill 474. So on the contested calendar, roll call is required and ordered. Voting on the board. Mr. Stavronakis, do you have something pertaining to the roll call? All right, have all members voted? Any objection, cutting roll call short? All right, Mr. Howard, you ready? You got your picture? Can we, any objection now, cutting roll call short? Hearing none, polls closed. Clerk will tabulate. By a vote of 82 to 32, Senate Bill 474 receives third reading. All right. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Stavronakis, for what purpose do you rise?
Mr. Speaker, if I could ask for the body's attention for a moment. During the long debate today, we had some unfortunate news from back home in Charleston. Our police chief, who has battled cancer bravely for 2 years, made the sad announcement that he's decided to withdraw from care and to enter hospice. after 2 years battling cancer. And so I would like to ask the body to take a moment and lift Chief Reynolds, his family, and the men and women of the Charleston Police Department up in silent prayer.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, please rise and have a moment of silence for Chief Reynolds and his family of Charleston. Please bow your heads. Amen. Mr. Thigpen, did you want to? Mr. Thigpen.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to have also the body's attention as we have gone beyond what our normal hours, and we do have individuals that are still traveling a great distance and may have traveled through dark, roads, highways, and byways. Just having a moment of silence for prayer and safe arrival for all those who are heading home.
All right, members, please bow your heads. Amen.
Amen.
All right, members, if I could get your attention for a second. Members, everybody, I know we're all eager to leave. Let me have a few words. All right, members, please get in your seats just for a second. All right, members, let me make a couple announcements. All right, members, come on. What's going to happen is they're going to ask me all these questions, what we doing, and here's your opportunity to hear it. All right, we're going to come back in next Wednesday at noon. So I want you all to be prepared. We have a couple conference reports. First and foremost is the voting bill conference report. So we'll be taking up that bill for carryover as well as other conference reports. We anticipate that there will be a budget and capital reserve conference report for us to take up as soon as we as the conference committees meet and produce a conference report. We will send those to you. I know those who are interested in the budget conference report, we will try to get that to you as soon as we can. I hope you understand a lot of time when we have budget conference reports, putting the budget conference reports together is an arduous task for the staff. It's difficult for them to have spreadsheets, but we will try to have our Ways and Means Committee get to you the sum and substance of it, and as soon as we're in possession of a spreadsheet, we will pass that on along to you. And remember, there are spreadsheets and there are conference reports, so they're two different things, and so we'll try to get you those as soon as we can. The conference report probably won't be signed until, well, hopefully it will be signed before then. The Senate's coming in on Tuesday. First and lastly, but not least, I'm sorry I wasn't here yesterday. Most of you know I had a stomach bug, and it was not my choice. I'd much rather have been with y'all than what I was going through the last day and a half. But I want to thank you. I watched last night way we conducted ourselves today in a very, very tough issue. We showed the country that this is a body of integrity, this is a body of honor, and this is a body who love one another and who can get along with one another. And we should be an example for the political process around the state. I thank you all for conducting yourselves in manners that are befitting of the honor of this institution, and also showing great character to you all through this process. Lastly, I want to, as always, thank the staff. First and foremost, Sergeant at Arms, thank you for coordinating all this. We didn't know what was going to happen. We obviously had heightened security from what's been happening around the other states. That has not happened here, but we were prepared and to make sure we could deal with any situation that arose. So thank you, Sergeants, for your great work. And to the judiciary staff and all the staff that works over here, we thank you for your work on these bills. Y'all worked on amendments and Legislative Council, I cannot thank you enough for drafting 950 amendments in record time, but thank you for thank the Legislative Council staff for what they've done. I want to thank all the employees in the block building who take care of us and take care of that building while we're gone. They also deserve a round of applause for their work over this. And lastly, let me say this, is until you stand in the position where I am, do you know what wonderful people we have that serve on this desk with us? I watch you when I was sick over this time and watch the dedication you all have, the demeanor you have, the kindness you show everyone over here. I thank you all for this. This is probably the most arduous of the processes on those who are sitting up here and those who are in the clerk's office. I thank you all for what you've done to keep this institution running. You have our undying respect and friendship, and we appreciate so much what you do that I have been talking. A number of members have come up and asked me, and so I want y'all. You obviously had to close out after today, and y'all going to be here long after we leave tonight. And so with that, I would hereby allow y'all to have ordered for y'all. I won't have to order the clerk because you know he makes you work all the time. So I hereby order Charles Reed to give the ladies on the desk and all the clerk's office tomorrow off. So congratulations, ladies. Y'all have tomorrow off. Thank you for your work. So I'm happy to give y'all Friday off as well. So ordered, Mr. Clark. You get the clerk has to be there, but the rest of the clerk staff does not have to be in the building. So thank you. Lastly, everyone have a great weekend. Hope y'all have a safe drive home. If you're going home tonight, be careful. And otherwise, I will see y'all next Wednesday. And so, Well, obviously, I forgot the most important crew, and that is my crew, the speaker staff. So for everybody that thought I did something wrong, then or you blame the staff or our reading clerk who did a great job, Bubba Cromer. I was expecting booze for Bubba, so. All right, well, you all, Ms. King, for what purpose you rise?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Just a quick question in reference to next week. Do we prepare for 1 or 2 days, do you know? And as we prepare for the rest of this fiscal year, do you know of any other days that we may be called in so we can start preparing? And if we need to stay, we can start booking our hotel rooms?
Yes, sir. Mr. King, I anticipate as conference reports. We're coming in Wednesday at noon. We're going to let the Senate work on the Senate bill we just sent over them today, and they hopefully will adopt their conference report. I anticipate we'll just have a couple of conference reports. I would hope that we could finish that in one day. If we can't, then we will obviously carry on as long as we can, and we may have to be prepared to spend a night, but I don't think you would have to anticipate spending more than one night there. Thereafter, I anticipate with vetoes, and if everything goes according to plan, the conference report gets to the governor's office ratified and get to the governor's office on Wednesday, that hopefully he can work with us and have his vetoes returned to us. He would have Tuesday until midnight. Hopefully he'll work with us to get those vetoes completed earlier and get them to us. So I'm hoping we come back Tuesday. There's a possibility we have to come back Wednesday to deal with vetoes. And then I think that's the following week. Yes, sir. I don't have the dates in front of me. I don't have a calendar. So I would hope after that that's all the time we need, and we can adjourn and enjoy the rest of our summer like we talked about. So with that, Mr. Cal Forrest moves that the House do now adjourn to meet in statewide session at noon on Wednesday, May 24th, 2023. All in favor signify by saying aye. All opposed, ayes have it. We stand adjourned.